Mason.
Just stand up. Just stand up, yeah.
Is that where you're from, Frank?
I love your shirt.
Yes. Adam,
Yes.
yeah, excuse me. Could you just tell me what your thoughts are about environment, this so-called climate change, please?
Right, do you want me to answer here or do you want me to jump up there?
Yeah, jump up for me.
Sure.
And you just repeat the similar question, just so we get it all on video.
Okay, so the question, Frankie, was you wanted me to talk a little bit more about this climate change. Okay, so I've been talking about climate change since about 2006. I've been lecturing all over the world about it. But most of all, it's not just about me being out there talking about it. I've spent hundreds of hours listening to the top experts in the world and the top scientists speak to people. But more importantly, I've had dinner with them afterwards, where the story shifts a little bit. And then I've also had a scotch after dinner, where the story shifts a little bit more. And what I've found from having those different discussions and hearing what you publicly hear, what you might hear in the back room, and then what you hear really behind the closed door, is it's actually far worse than you could ever imagined. You've got positive feedback loops that go on top of each other. And when you have those positive feedback loops go on top of each other, it's like being at the top of a hill, and we're just slowly pushing these big boulders to the edge of the hill. And once they go over the edge, we can't stop them from rolling down the hill and destroying the village. And right at this point in time, the Great Barrier Reef, that big boulder, we've just nudged it over the edge. No one can stop it. The Great Barrier Reef will actually dissolve in front of our eyes in the next few decades. And that's one of the big reasons I'm here. I'm super sad that the most passionate thing that I've devoted my life to has been destroyed by inaction, by people just not caring. And a lot of people think that to do action on climate change will mean that you will suffer. You know, somehow something will happen to you. Your prices will go up for electricity, or they'll take away some of your rights, something like that. And it's total BS. And I know that for serious in Cairns, because we're already so far along the climate change journey already up here. You don't actually have to do anything, or very little, up in Cairns to meet the requirements of a low carbon economy or anything like that, because we already get our electricity. Where's the nearest coal-fired power plant to here? It's, you know, it's ages away. So, you know, we've already got everything we need up here. I think any action on climate change from a progressive candidate like myself would not have any effect on your lifestyle or living up here. But in fact, over time, and it will take time because there's always a transition period, and we were meant to start this 20 years ago, over time, actually, your electricity prices will go down. A lot of the cost of living of stuff will actually go down as we transition over to an economy that's a little bit better for the environment. And I'll leave you with this last thing that I've said to a lot of people, because I've been yelled at a lot for the last 20 years. Is that even if you don't believe in climate change or anything like that, I'd love to have a long chat to you and try to explain some of the science, but even if you don't believe that, I think we need to make a choice between pollution and no pollution.
Yes,
And I'm for no pollution because that's the world I want to live in, and that's the world I think our kids want to live in. And I think it's time we moved away from big multinationals making a bucket load of money by destroying our planet, and bringing it back to small businesses making money doing the right thing for our environment.
I did see a hand. Also, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Just a quick one for all the candidates.
Oh.
If you are elected, first day in the job in Canberra, it's a big job. What resources can you pull in to help you do that job?
Okay, I'm going to give you 10 seconds each. And it's going to be random.
Yeah, I'm going to jump straight in. And I think everybody needs to recognise
Can you
that...
stand up? No problem, stand up.
Yeah, sorry.
We're down the back there.
Yeah, all right. No, but the honest truth question to that, the answer to that question is the resource will come to us. What you don't realise, and this is what you all don't really comprehend, that preference vote, those things there, that leads to an independent being elected, the other major parties have to come to us. Doesn't matter who it is. It's how it works right now. All right, you go, well, they've got major power, they've got the majority government, they will get it done. Not true. It's absolute a farce in the system. What they require is the independent to cross the floor and vote with them. And that is the resource, sir, that we will take back for the seat of Leichhardt.
Yeah.
10 seconds. The thing that the biggest resource I have in my life, whether it's in Parliament, government, or personal life, is the people I know and the connections I have created. That is the only thing that I will be bringing. When someone says to me, "Oh, Silvia, I don't know how I'm going to do this. You know, I have to go to court or something." I say, "Okay, you need to talk to Bernie. Swap numbers," and they talk. Things get done by people, nothing else.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that makes a difference, and that's why I'm going to be.
I 100% agree, actually. It's people. And the fact is that exactly what Ross said, as the election goes on, you'll find out who your allies are anyway. The reality is, we need to get an outcome. That outcome means we need to work with people, and the whole thing should be about the merit and driving forward for the outcome rather than arguing about what colour your shirt is.
I basically take all of these things. I think it's already been answered. I mean, I've been here 22 years. I've already got people putting their hand up to say, if you get elected, I'm right by your side and I'm working with you. Some of them are currently my volunteers. But I also pull in, obviously, the professionalism of 25 years experience of Pauline, fighting for what she's fighting for, because that's why I'm doing this, because that's exactly where I stand. So I'm putting her office into it as well. But at the end of the day, it does come, it's about people, 100%.
First thing that comes to mind is I'd be saying, God, like Solomon, show me how to lead these people. Show me how to grant me the wisdom to give me grace to be a servant for these people. So there's wisdom found in the council of many, and that would be in the electorate here. So.
Adam, one more.
Great
We're
question.
still stuck on the climate change.
Great question. If I was elected, the government will actually give me a budget to hire a team of people to assist me in representing you. And in that team, I've met Warren Inch's team. Half of them are spin masters and PR people. I'm not going to do that, okay? I think a politician or a representative of Leichhardt, the most important thing for what most people see is them talking and promising. And actually, I think you're paying me to legislate. You're paying me to put bills before Parliament so we find out who votes for them and who doesn't, and we know who we need to vote out at the next election. So I'll take that team of 10 people and I will not fill it with spin masters. I will fill it with the most brilliant minds I can find, whether that be economists, whether that be scientists, or whether that be small business people. The best minds I can, put them together, and we'll have a brain trust and we'll make this a better place in Barnard.
So what we did was we've asked the Facebook community to actually, so this is how uncensored it is. It's coming in just like this. Right?
Well, this one's kind of a tough one, but I will try and I'll add my little flair to it as well, because I'm understanding why the majors didn't turn up today. There's a bit of a trait against them, which they deserve. But basically, you look at this question here is related to you. When someone goes and votes, I'm trying to think this straight out. When someone goes to vote, at the end of the day, they can talk about all these different nice things, but the cost of living is the number one thing that affects people. Being able to pay the mortgage, put food on the table for their kids, and I think we're allowed to judge the major parties because we've got a 60-year history, and the cost of living is only gone one direction. So every time I see them flapping their gums about they're going to help with the cost of living, my blood starts to boil because they've failed us miserably. So that's why I picked this question. The others, they want to know, and I'll open this to everyone again. We'll do 15, 20 seconds each. So let's talk about the Australian tax system. Do you think it needs an overhaul? I mean, you go back 50 years. Some of the comments keep going. You go back 50 years or whatnot. There's probably 80 or 100 less taxes that exist today. People lived in a one-income family, and I'm actually interested. Well, I might start with you again, Rod, because you brought something up in debate and got cut off by a moderator. But I just want to hear your opinion on our current tax system. Do you think it needs to be overhauled? And just what are some ideas you might have about it?
20 seconds.
No, unless you got cut up, we're going to get you.
It's an interesting conversation, all right? To fix the problem of taxes, you must tax someone else. I don't know, it just doesn't seem right. If my little son has done something wrong at home, I don't smack the big son. And then the little son will learn from that and he'll get a better life out of it. It doesn't make sense to me. One of the things that I was brought up, and it's just a thing, it's just a couch conversation. And it's my life. the funny thing about leadership is you have to lead with your life experience. If you don't have that experience, it's very hard to lead because you can't walk the walk of the person who's asked you something. All right, so my life, one parent income, it's by choice. My wife decided to stay home to look after our children. Fantastic. How does that affect us? One income family. All right, I have 3 children and I'm a child, so four children at home and my wife. All right, so here is the problem that I have. I make a certain amount of money. Let's just disclose that as $100,000. And I get taxed unbelievably on that. What I would say to my government is, we have a circumstance here that if I split my wage with my wife, I have money in my pocket to go about the everyday things that I need to get done. I can pay off my mortgage. All right? And then lo and behold, if you go a little bit further and think, well, the tax system may allow you to take some credits for how many children you have. All right? This is a life document. It's live. Your circumstances change. So you can't stay at the one system. That system was made then, and it's going to stay until the end of time. We've got to move with the people. The people are hurting right now. They're asking for some more money in their pocket. Let that happen. And then everyone's going to say, well, what about people that don't have children? There are already income leverage for you to have. We're talking about the people that we're working with right now on the ground. What does that really mean in the back end of it? If I was able to income split with my wife and my 3 children, there is a possibility, and this needs to be looked a little bit more into, but there's a possibility that I'm making 20 grand more in my pocket each year. What does that mean to me? That means a lot. That means a great deal. And that's how you start helping out with the cost of living. Not by giving someone a subsidy to lower the power bills or give us a 6-week fix on fuel. That's not how you do that. You get back into people's families and you put the money there. Not by giving them a credit to say, here is something to vote for me. Be real. Give them back something that they can use, and then that way, we will repay you. That's what we do. The people working on the ground, we will repay you. And that's where I'm staying. We need to be repaid for the work that we've done so that we can move forward.
I think it doesn't come back to like just the individual. Rod's kind of right. We need to get it from somewhere else and stop taking from Aussies. So how about starting with our multinational companies? We actually have over 700 multinational companies in Australia right now that are not paying any tax. 2 of them alone made $1 million profit last year, just pure profit. Not a cent was paid in tax. Our agricultural land, 14%. They're actually sending all their food overseas, feeding their own. We're not benefiting from that at all. So we've got to look at taking it from elsewhere, get them to pay tax. The other thing that One Nation wants to do is go through the politicians' perks. Yes. At the moment, that's costing Australia $350 million a year. That's a lot of money. And guess what? That goes through till they die. But every 3 years and 4 years and whatever the terms, you're getting more and more. So that's going up and up. Because I don't think they're dying because they're living a pretty good lifestyle. I don't think they're dying as fast as they're getting in. So that's always going to keep going up. So one thing One Nation wants to do is go through that. And the reason, and no extensions to GST and abolish payroll tax. There's a lot of things that if they're put in place and they work collectively together, we can make a difference. At the moment, we have immigration coming in, our asylum seekers. We want to reduce those numbers for a short space of time, just for 5 years. At the moment, I believe they're around 250,000, but I have to double check that because I was pulled up on that the other day, so please. Our idea on a ratio basis is to take that down to about 70 to 80,000. They're taking our jobs. Okay, that's income to people. That's right. Get people working, it's actually more money coming into our economy. So when you look at all our policies in one, the cost of living will in effect, when they're all put in place, reduce. And along with that, we will have tax benefits as well and other people paying our tax. But I just want to add one thing. With those multinational companies and the foreign investment that Senator Jared mentioned before, we want foreign ownership to stop. Yes. Yes. No more sales of our land to foreign people. It's our land. And they're selling our water. That is beyond a joke. Like, we need our water. But just on the foreign ownership, we don't, I can't believe the third world countries actually got this right in the beginning, because they don't sell their land. If you are not a resident there, you can't buy it. You can lease it.
Yep.
You can buy it if you're married to one, a resident. But if something goes wrong in that relationship, it goes back to the resident. So we keep ownership of our land. It was one of the biggest things he brought up that I am all for. Stop selling Australia from under our feet.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
That's okay.
I didn't even see you.
No, Jen's right. Like, we've got to look at those politicians first. I mean, we've got to stop inviting boyfriends to Olympic. Anyway, but Indonesia does that. Indonesia will only, it's actually called hak milik, which means they will not, they'll only lease you the land. They will not sell it to you freehold, you know. And it's not a bad idea at all.
But we still want to lease it for 25 years. Yeah, still lease it, but it's got to be beneficial to Australia.
Dan.
I'll keep it 10 seconds.
Sure.
So we actually have a core policy in our Australia Party that is a 20% reduction for both individuals and businesses in all regional areas. Big thing, all like us regional. So every one of us will get 20% off our tax bill. Because the end of the day is, as Brett said, the cost of living is going up. But the amount of money we're making isn't going proportional. And then we have inflation and interest rates on top of that. It's just going to compile. And we have to do everything we can to keep that economy going. So straight off the bat, vote for me. You will get 20% back in your pocket.
Okay, so that was a two-part question. There was taxes and then cost of living.
I threw mine in first, so I
Yeah,
spun it a bit.
so with taxes, the problem we have with taxes right now is just the level of shitfuckery, basically, and the level of loopholes that are in there. Because we've got all these loopholes, and the only way you and me can determine what these loopholes are and take advantage of them is by hiring some person for $500 an hour to translate the tax code for us so we can use the same loopholes everyone else does. And that, to me, it's just criminal. It's not how it's meant to be. We need to simplify the whole tax system so you and me can understand it, with just a couple of pages, and get rid of, all the loopholes and the BS, I can say BS, BS out.
You can say BS over Sydney.
And then it's a common term when you talk about the government. And then the second thing is the cost of living. And it really, it gets me all irate with cost of living stuff because, all you ever hear is these big promises, these big, one will say, 100 million, the other one will say 200 million, and it's all BS. So people need solutions, and they need solutions that can be implemented immediately. And so for cost of living up here, there's a whole heap of them. I'll just mention two. First of all, fuel. We've all looked at the fuel bowser and we nearly get heart attacks when we fill up our car. That can be solved instantly. We just need to refine our own fuel on Australian soil. We refine our own fuel, we can get it down below $1 a litre. It's only 60 cents a litre. We can do that. This year, we can bring it down under a litre.
LPG too.
Sorry?
LPG.
And LPG, we can make that very cheap, LPG. And then the second thing I'll just mention, there's lots of great ideas out there. The second one is food. I've noticed, you go to, I'm sure we can all have that thing in the last year or two. We've gone to Woolies and Coles and we have been shocked at the bill at the end, even though it's the same thing we're buying every single week. And that, to me, is transport. A lot of it is just transport. We grow amazing food up here. We transport it down to Melbourne. They put a sticker on it. They transport it back up here, and we buy it when it's got no nutrition left or anything left there. And so we're spending way much money to get food that isn't even healthy and isn't even good for us. So I would like to start, get the Australian government to invest in a trial program, which is the Far North Queensland Food Collective. We get all the local farmers together and we create our own supermarket with good local food.
30 seconds if you'd like.
No.
He's done his own Silvia.
I am really passionate about one of the foundations, one of the principles of Australian representative democracy, and that is rule of law. So I will take my 1 minute, okay? And the other people who should take their 1 minute is, like Geena said, the big multinationals and the billionaires and everything like that. What they've got that we don't have is the money to buy, $500 an hour accountants. So it's not a level playing field. The rule of law is totally hooed on, if I'm allowed to say that.
I know he's just broken the bar.
Okay, so-
I've got a new hashtag now.
Now, as Geena said, the police purse, you know, they do a job and then they retire or they lose their seat and they keep getting paid till they die. But did you also know, Pauline brought it up the other day, the judiciary also does that. Now, the judiciary is a massive problem as well. They get a lot of money, do a little bit of work, and then they keep getting paid for it. And the people who they're looking after is not anyone in this room. You know, sorry about that. Yeah, that's right. There's also, one of the IMOP policies, we also agree to limit foreign ownership. We also think there needs to be less red tape and regulation. We are an over-regulated nanny state, especially in Queensland. It's out of control. One example that we could change tomorrow, even just by the scroll of a pen, would be if you've got a job and then you get a second job. That second job isn't even worth it because you end up getting paid like $2 an hour or something ridiculous. So by scrapping that second job extra tax payment, the flow-on effect from that is massive. Small businesses don't have to do secondary accounting things for people on their second job. People who, like, if they need a second job, they're not penalised. They're getting, equal work for, fair work for fair pay, exactly. And it just flows on. Another way that we can lower the cost of living, is totally agree with Adam, and I'll also tell everybody here as well, you might know, there's Tablelands to Tabletop, there is Farmer to Foodie. Now these two organisations do exactly what that is. They go around to all the farms on the tablelands, they collect the produce, they deliver to Johnson's Farm Market, they deliver it home delivery. So there is infrastructure that small business people, entrepreneurs have put into place. So we just need to support those kind of industries. I would like to see manufacturing back in North Queensland. I would like to see a canning factory. Why aren't we freeze drying stuff? People in Cooktown grow bananas, send them down south, they come back up and they're rotten. Why are we doing that? So that's, we can do it.
Yeah, so Gerard Raddick alluded to the fact that having low interest loans, or maybe through a rural infrastructure bank or a rural development bank, that would be great to see transportation costs drop here by actually, using that money to build and solve the Gillies range and the Kuranda range problem. So help the farmers out, reduce transport costs, and bring the costs down low. So that's one way. I know that in small business, the Australian Federation Party has got a policy of flicking the responsibility of superannuation back to the ATO, so all small businesses don't have to face the issue of dealing with superannuation for the employees. There are many, but also, again, it's back to you. We can have a forum and talk about this and come to a consensus about what you would like to see happen with the taxes. But my personal opinion, I'd like to see the small businesses you could have maybe a 15% income tax or a 15% company tax. Retention of staff, you could maybe, if you're in the hospitality and tourism and you're training someone for 12 months and then they want to leave and you've trained them and then you've got to start all over again. So maybe then you have, I thought of this morning, I thought, this might be a good idea. Maybe we could have we could certainly have increase the tax-free threshold for someone who's finished their apprenticeship. And so if they want to stay on, maybe it goes from 18,000 to 25 or 30,000. So you double their tax-free threshold status. There's many ways we can skin the cat. Taxes, it's a big open-ended question, but that's a good way. Infrastructure, Reddick was talking about. Let's get the dams built. Let's start building, and I'd love to see ties with PNG strengthened. So we maybe get them involved in training them and building relations with them. Okay.
Because we are fair and equitable, I'd like to give Dan some extra time. If you want to take it, go for it.
Yeah.
All right. I was trying
Because
to
he's
speak.
stuck to the 30 seconds.
So, in addition, I totally agree that the taxation system is quite convoluted. The reality is that when it comes to all the cost of living, it is a huge issue. But I just wanted to make one point, because I have a bit of time now.
Yeah.
A lot of bad press is thrown around about Clive. I hear a lot of stuff, right? The funny thing is this group of people is people who won't believe mainstream media about all the other things, but they do believe it about Clive. I just want to remind everyone, in a really friendly way, that no other individual in Australia, particularly a wealthy one, has spent more money fighting the government against all these mandates. There is thousands of people in this country with that kind of money. Thousands. Did you hear of any other one? There's 7 current court cases just in Queensland where he's fighting this state government, not just federal and all the other stuff, against his mandates. And when, you won't hear this in the news, but 3 days before the court case Clive had against the Queensland government about border restrictions, 3 days before, they pulled the court case. All right? So I just wanted to make that point clear because I've met the guy a bunch of times now. I had my mum running through the ringer and he passed the mum test, which I think is really important. And look, I get it. He's an extremely successful business guy, all right? And I'm sure he stepped on plenty of toes.
Yes.
But as a judge of character, how he's spending his money and how he's spending his time now is for all of us.
Yes.
And I just want to remind everyone that because I think it's really important.
But I just want to say I think you all passed the mum test. So.
And he gave us hydroxychloroquine and
He did.
took away.
It was taken away by the government.
Yeah, so, and that's a good thing. It is, we're all here, and it's so good to see how well you're interacting with each other too, if I can say that.
I really got to say something because this is just transparency, yeah? So the conversation is going along, and this whole journey is a bit of a struggle for me because there is no debating.
That's right.
We're just having a discussion at the moment, and that's dangerous.
Yeah.
All right, so, and I'm not having to go at anybody here. I'm just saying that be very careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
All right, because that idea about our sovereignty and having the idea that government can create an organisation that I just came back from WEPA, and it's not just the Indigenous people that are hurting. Because small business can't start up there because there's issues with land. Not from the TOs, not from local government, but from big government.
Yeah.
From legislation that has been held since the early 70s all the way till now. So as we have a discussion, be very careful what we want to say, how we're going to do this, and if I jump in, I'm going to create a body that creates that.
That's good.
Right? You need to be aware that there are already things in place, and I implore you, please go and look at this. It's exactly the same as our preferential votes. You need to be a part of the conversation. It's the whole reason I'm standing up.
Yes.
I am no longer wanting to be in the background, that silent observer. All right, so be careful as we go forward.
I totally agree with Rod about the debate. When we come to the climate change, I was busting to ask, like, why is the fisheries department selling 200 tonnes of our coral overseas to aquariums every year if it's dying and it's going to die?
Yeah.
So why don't we stop selling it off?
I have a question about infrastructure. I'm a Queenslander, born and bred, but I've lived in the US and in the UK and Europe and Africa and other places for the last 30 years. I design infrastructure and I come back to Queensland, stuck here in COVID, and I find the worst, the most expensive infrastructure in the world here. If we continue to build and maintain and extend egregious infrastructure that literally is no better than what was designed in the 1920s, that we know degrades human and environmental health, that we distribute food in such a way that it gives our kids asthma and degrades the cardiovascular health of every one of us. What are we doing? How do we make infrastructure accountable to health? How do we make it not destroy our human and environmental health?
So how the lovely ladies asked the question, how do we make infrastructure not destroy the environment and our health? Okay, so this is your very last, this is last stand. This is it, okay? It's more than 30 seconds.
Okay.
I've definitely got an opinion on this. Let me tell you.
Okay, so I'm going to start, I'm just randomly going to turn that, okay, if that's okay? And I'm going to start with Paul.
Go for it.
So how do we, I'm just going to rephrase that, if that's okay. How do we ensure that going forward, our infrastructure doesn't affect environment and building of infrastructure, I beg your pardon, environment and health?
Sorry, let me clarify. We can design infrastructure. We have ingenuity and educated communities to design infrastructure that provides the distribution services, the power, the water, that does not hurt everybody. That's not happening. The contracting, recruitment, that doesn't happen. We are systematically building infrastructure that is overpriced. Many multinational corporate engineering firms, but it's a moral question, right?
Yeah, it's a moral
we have to design. This is where government fails mainly. I know none of you are engineers, and if the corporate engineering firm comes along and says this is the best solution, that doesn't work, right? Because we know those corporate engineering firms that are winning all the contracts aren't innovative designers, and they don't care about how much it.
It's a boys' club. It's the elephant in the room, and there's women in the boys' club too, but.
So this is huge amounts of money, and it's the most important thing that our government can do for us is provide public infrastructure that works. That is
environmentally and, ethically and safe for health as well.
Well, consensus, so again, it's in bringing it back to, we're going to bring it to the community, so the particular stakeholders involved in, say, in the Leichhardt region, and we will have those selected groups that want to be a part of this. We can look at it and go, well, we'll tick the boxes. Does it meet the moral and meet the ethical, sustainable development type of environmental success box, or if it works or not, basically. So we put it to you and get people like yourself involved and go, hey, this is not going to cut the mustard. So again, it's back to you. Then we formulate have a decision about it. Then we take it back to Parliament. Make sure that what we get up here meets that criteria. That's what I would be doing.
I'm just going to start with one example, and please correct me if I haven't answered your question, but I'll start with the Coranda Range, just the one option. So I've already started having meetings regarding the Coranda Range because I'm pretty disgusted that they would spend $30 million on an ITS system of our tax dollars to put up little lights to tell you to go slower. If you're not going to go slower with a solid steel, you're certainly not going to do it because you've got little lights. No. This thing is upgraded though. It actually detects when the road is wet, and it will adjust the speed accordingly. Apparently, then you're supposed to. $30 million. That's the start of it. Then the next $210 million was based on widening the road and putting guardrails up. $210 million. I'm sorry, I actually questioned someone about the cost of a $30 million system, and they just said, oh, Dean, there's some money going south somewhere in that. So I've actually had a meeting. This was right at the beginning of my campaign because I am sick of this issue. It's been 22 years on the table. Sorry, am I getting
No, I must be like
it's been on the nod. It's been on the nod. It's been on the books for over 22 years, and every election it comes up, and still there is no answer. It was interesting. I know a guy who does this sort of work for a living, this sort of construction. I had a meeting with him, and I actually called on Pauline's team, and they sent somebody up here and sat and had a meeting with this guy. I'm not going to go into it at the moment because I'm not going to half say something, well, I'm sort of half saying something. All I'm saying is this option he had been trying to put forward for years, which is at a third of the cost of what the government is currently looking at to do the actual job, not the Band-Aid fixes. So there are options out there. I just don't think they're being presented, to be totally honest. I think there are ideas out there. I think you're right. I think the contracts are, buddy system. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and you get the job.
But there's legislation as well. The Coranda Range has to comply with federal road standards. Right? As it turns out, the Coranda Range is different. It's in a different ecosystem. It has different biogeochemistry. It's more slippery, and it's not the same as a road in Canberra. And so
that's exactly right.
Everything else is this insanity of this federal imposition, and they do most of the funding of these roads, and everybody has to comply. So anything innovative that has high standard of evidence that saves people's lives doesn't even get talked about, discussed, and there's no interesting, certainly no local designers on the
no, there is. They're just not being heard.
That's a problem.
Like every other industry in this town, no one is being heard, and that goes from residents to businesses to industries to everyone. They're not being heard. Now, this guy, I just want to add, this guy's plan will not even close down the Coranda Range while it's being done. And at the moment, the last report, or I can't remember whether it was the last report, the 22nd report, or the 48th report that was done, but it was very recent, this one, reported that we're currently losing $250 million a year in our economy because of that road. We have a lot of trucks bringing all their fruit and veg down to sell to bring it down, to do the airport, to go and fly it out to these markets so that we can buy it back. But they still have to get it down there. But at the end of the day, when that road is closed, those farmers sit there and watch all their fruit and veg just rot. That is blood, sweat and tears rotting in front of their face. I'm from a pig farm background. It's not growing food, but it's still the same thing. I can't imagine my father putting in all that work to watch it just rot in front of our faces. That must cripple them every time. This road needs to be done in 20 years, 22 years. Someone's not doing their job.
Well, thank you for that excellent question. I, like you, have seen the exact same thing. You travel the world and you see these incredible infrastructure projects where people collected together, say in Norway, they taxed all the people taking all the oil out of their commonwealth, and they put it towards incredible infrastructure where instead of having to drive up a range on top of a hill, they just have a tunnel going straight through it that's big enough for every truck in the world, you know. They've spent this money, but what they've done, it's a lot like what a senator, our guest speaker senator said, is that we need to invest in ourselves. We need to invest in Australia. We need to decide as Australians and go, you know what, putting a tunnel in to open up that area so we can turn, you know, Coranda and Speewah into other suburbs of Cairns basically and grow this area. We got to invest in that ourselves. We don't go and ask the United States, hey, can we have some of the money you printed out of thin air and then we'll pay you back? No, we print that ourselves and we invest in us. And then we'll get the benefits for here on out. Another thing I want to mention, which I also noticed, and I'm trying to think of a way to say this without like sounding insulting, but the most incredible Australians I've ever met weren't in Australia. I met a lot of Australians overseas who were civil engineers, they were city planners and designers. They were the most incredible, talented Australians we've ever produced. And they couldn't get a job in Australia. They couldn't build a new city in Australia. They couldn't get that project, okay? Because all those projects are already locked up into mates of politicians, and that's it. Right? So we need to stop that brain drain. We need to bring back, and a lot of them have come back for COVID and they've been stuck here like yourself, so now's a good time. Grab them, bring them back, and stop that brain drain out of Australia and give these incredible Australians who we've spent and we've invested through university and stuff to get them to where they are, give them the keys and say, hey, what do you want to build? What do you think's best for Australia? And let's listen to them.
Fantastic ideas, I agree, and I think this is a fundamental key part of this missing, is that when we do things, we used to be a society that when we had tradesmen, they would sign off on a job, they were proud of it, and it would last a long time. As a kid, the fridge we had was already 20 or 30 years old. I can tell you, being in the waste industry for years, we throw away so much stuff. So I think the first step is how we think about things, because we're not thinking long term, we're thinking 3 years down the track. So when we go and build infrastructure, we're not thinking, how do we build it once and build it right? Because if you go back to the war, they would build a road. You can drive on that road now, it's still fine, because they were building it to last. So the mentality shift, and I think that's a huge issue.
And you can see it most of the bridges.
Yes, you can see it.
Bridge is about to...
So,
You need to stop joining in. Let us answer the question.
Keep joining in.
there's the debate. So what I've suggested, and UAP has taken on as a core policy, is a circular economy that's both regional and industry specific, because your point is exactly right. You can't create a model in Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra, something like that, and expect it to work up here. You can't take that model and stick it on Torres Strait Islands and expect it to work. You have to be conscious of the ecosystem you exist in and how things work economically, and make it work so it's sustainable in the future. I'll wrap up there.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, was it? He's having a laugh.
Pretty strong, right?
Oh my gosh, totally agree with what all the other candidates have said. And I'd like to also bring it to things like, you know, Chilumban, the wind farm. They brought in massive amounts of China for these big blades that they got made over there. They last for 20 years. And then what happens to them? They get buried them, or they just leave them up there and they're not able to work. It's absolutely insane. I mean, personally, I have lived in Brisbane and I've lived up here. And they are two totally different places. What works in other places doesn't work up here. And I think that we should be focusing more on what happens up here. I mean, I would love the state government to disappear, honestly, and we just have bigger LGAs. If that had created a dream world. And I think by doing that...
You the policies and the act that does that. So when you're in Parliament, you can do that.
Well, perhaps.
That's a big
That's a big thing. You can put it, that would have to be a referendum.
Yes.
We need more referendums.
Yes.
And actually, and that's a really good point. Not only referendums, but even just like town hall community involvement. Why don't we have like a website or an app where people can vote on stuff as they come up every month? You know, like care and arrange. We've got this idea, we've got this idea, we've got this idea. And people say, oh, I like this one, I like that one. With the innovation over here, it's embarrassing. Australia is almost...
It wasn't 40 years ago.
No,
No.
fair enough. But now
We've
it
definitely
is.
gone backwards.
You know, you go overseas and you go down into their metros and their trains and they're, you know, futuristic. When you catch the train here, not futuristic. The last Met promised that there would be a light rail. Where is it? Bob Manning, when he got in, when he was campaigning, light rail. Have you seen anyone? Has anyone seen a light rail around Cairns? Why aren't we utilising the sugarcane things, you know? There's so much we could be doing, and I'm just going to come back to saying I think it's a boys' club. They share the contracts above, and it's really hard for the little fish to get on there and get in there.
Yes.
Yep.
And I really don't want to be staunching out over the top of people, but you get passionate about this sort of stuff.
You do.
However, where does it all begin? It begins with your vote. I'm going to talk about investing in things, about all that infrastructure, we're talking about all these bits and pieces that lead to the end goal. All right, I think very quickly we forget that we already know how to throw a tennis ball. Yeah? You know, teach your little ones to throw a tennis ball. It's like this. But the little one doesn't know that it starts with your feet. All right, so you've got to step back from where you are right now and say, well, if I am going to do something, you need to choose the correct champion. Somebody, all right, and so I don't know if it's me, I don't know that. But I know one thing, that if you're going to do something, you have to live it every single day. So when someone comes to you at election time and says, here's $2.5 million to do this, and then passes it on to someone else and says, that's not my job anymore. That was the wrong person who brought you that $2.5 million. I'm not even joking about it, because we look at it and go, thank God they did that. Now we've got to move on. But the next person doesn't really know what they're going to be doing with it. You need to elect somebody that once you start the journey, they will walk that journey for every day forward. And then at the end of the third year, when you have to vote for them again, you're going to hold them accountable to what they said they would do. Yeah. And that's where we are right now. There is no accountability. There is no check and balance. Yeah. So we come to a point where we're passionate at the back of the room and we're yelling forward. You're not doing that, miss, but I'm just saying. All right? The person at the front, at the lectern, needs to be more passionate about what's going on in the community than you are. That is the person that you need to lead you forward. Now that person probably doesn't even think they're a leader, but they are the passionate one in your community. They are the person that's doing the chook raffle. They are the person that is bringing us all together to make sure that whatever the circumstance, whatever the situation is, that we're all doing it together. Right? I don't get this conversation that is a federal issue, that is a state issue, and the legislation suggests this. No, it's a life issue, and I'm living it. This is where we are. This is the conversation of the federal election for 2022. You need to go home and look in your house, see the future that exists there, and then spread that message. I have no answers, you have the answers, but let's go together and I will kick in a few doors. Yeah. And I will stand there until you heard. You know, it's euphemism, I know, but at the end of the day, your passion should be carried like a torch, a flame from here to Canberra. But you can't be told, here, I'm going to do that, and I walk out the door, and then it's not even a forethought in my mind until the next time I see you, and then I'm going to cross the street. Right now, the elected people within the community who we've worked with forever stare right through you like your glass. I'm disappointed because that happens to me, and I'm like, I'm the one in boots on ground. I'm making you look good, and you look at me as if I don't even exist. That's where we are in this election.
Thanks, guys. That was good. I just wanted to say we intentionally didn't set this up as a debate. We wanted to be a mix of candidates.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, there's been other debates set up that a lot of people were invited to.
Yeah.
We want to give everyone that's watching at home and everyone here a chance to meet who you really are as a person. Because at the end of the day, as you just said then, that's what's more important. Who's going to fight for you once they're in, not just promise you and pork barrel things. And I think that's what today was about. I did have a quick question. I've been asked it twice. I've got one text and Berger got a text as well. And this is a real quick one. And we'll just go left to right again. Your preference sheet, your how to vote card. If some people don't have it, can you just let everyone know at home who you put last and how it works?
Yes.
Is that cool?
I put myself first because I believe in myself. And I put Paul Rowe because he's in CADCO, which is the Commonwealth of Australia Democratic Cooperative, and we formed in August last year with GAT, a Great Australia Party as well. So I put him second, and I've had some really great talks with him, and I'm happy to do that. Then I did Geena, Rod, and Dan as known freedom anti-mania parties. Then I spoke to Adam. I actually changed this around because I didn't know much about fusion. And I met Adam at one of these things, and he said he's definitely anti-mandate, and they're bringing in the medical. They also want to do a bill of rights like IMOP and like UAP to protect medical freedom of choice. So then I changed it around and put him at 6. And then I went Animal Justice Party, are very evasive about mandates. Then Socialist Alliance, very pro-vaccination for children, which I'm not happy about. There's absolutely no science about it. No, thank you, no way. And then I put Liberal, Labor, Greens. Greens because I absolutely vehemently detest them for being duplicitous watermelons. I learned that term this year in my political journey. Yeah, green on the outside, red on the inside. I put Liberal above Labor because I think both the party and the candidate in Leichhardt, that Liberal is less dangerous by a slim margin than Labor. So that's my explanation.
Give me a second, I'm still getting the watermelon. Ladies and gentlemen, how to vote cards. I'm sure everything's been explained very well. We all know we own our own preferences, and it's just a suggestion. And I honestly think how to vote cards are a bit of an insult to an intelligent voter. And I also think it's bordering along the lines of electoral persuasion, manipulation, that sort of thing. So, Fusion Party, I have not printed any how to vote cards. I would suggest that you put number 1 next to Fusion, and then whatever underneath that you would like, that's totally up to you. And if I'm elected, I would like to make how to vote cards illegal, because I think they're interfering with our election.
So, UAP number 1, the rest of your choices, and here's how we'd recommend it. These guys, all right? Silvia's been fighting all this time, every single freedom rally I've attended, spoke to this lady's been there. Geena, this is a powerhouse of a woman. I love it a bit, and I would be honoured if she got in just as much as I'd love to be in. And I mean that with my whole heart. She's absolutely fantastic. I believe she's got all the skills and attributes needed to kick ass in Canberra. Counter Party Rod, this guy's got the heart the size of the Lions. He's an incredible guy. So these are my top 4. You can pick whatever order you want, okay? And then these guys are the late contenders. I'm just starting to get them know them now, but they've got good heads on the shoulders. Other than that, you put the other small guys in, and then Labor, Liberal, Greens at the bottom. Now, if you're voting for these guys first, my recommendation is put me number 2. Thank you.
Well, number 1. That's all I want. No, I'm sorry. No, well, I'm pretty much the same. Silvia, Rod, and Dan are in my top. But at the end of the day, it is your vote. Put all the majors down. Let's make change. It's time for that. I'm trying to remember. You're actually second on my list.
You jumped at the top of everyone's list.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. But at the end of the day, you own your own preferences. And please, I've had so many people question me on how preferences actually work. And a lot of people don't understand. So if you don't, Pauline's done a little cartoon on our site to show you how they actually work, because it's really, really, really important.
Yeah, pretty simple. I've got 2 levels, and I literally haven't even put anyone's party beside their name. Alright, so what I need you to be thinking about is that you're going to be voting for one of the independents or one of the minor parties, and then Liberal and Labor are either 7 or correction are either 10 or 11. Up to you. Totally your choice. And the reason why I've taken away the names of the parties is because I really do believe that it is about the champion. Right? You go to any business. It's never going to work really well with your contract unless the person you're working with believes in you. You know this as a small business person. Unless the person believes in you, it's not going to get there. All right? Not everybody's football team is like that. All right? You need to make a decision about who's going to represent you the best, and it's the person, not the policy or the party. It's the person.
Yeah, obviously we're in the CADCO Alliance, so and I'm more than honoured to have Silvia as our number 2 after us, so me number 1. She's amazing, and I haven't got to know all of you that well, but you are all awesome. So, amazed. Everything you bring to the table is commendable and worthy of deep honour. I don't know the final order. Obviously, we don't want Venezuela, so we put all the lefties. Okay. So I would. I don't know the Australian Federation Party's preferences past Silvia at IMOP. I'm not exactly sure where they want it to go at the moment, so I don't know. But, yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you.